The heavy iron gate slammed shut inches from my front bumper, barring me from my own driveway. Mr. Henderson's face was pale with panic as he rushed to my window, his voice a frantic whisper that chilled my blood. "Do not get out of the car, Mrs. Miller. You are not safe here tonight." That night, when I arrived home and the building superintendent closed the gate before I could enter, I felt the world stop turning. Mr. Henderson looked at me with a seriousness I had never seen in the 3 years he had been working there. "Mrs. Miller," he said in a low voice, "your ex-husband has been watching you. Do not sleep here tonight. Tomorrow you will understand everything." My heart began to beat so fast I thought it was going to burst out of my chest. My hands were shaking as I gripped the keys to my car. Watching me? Why? It had been 8 months since the divorce. What more could he want from me after leaving me for a woman 20 years younger? "Mister." Henderson pulled out his cell phone and showed me something that froze the blood in my veins. They were photographs. Photographs of me, entering and leaving the building, at the grocery store, at the hair salon, at my sister's house, all taken in the last few weeks. "Who took these photos?" I asked, feeling my legs turn to jelly. "A man in a grey sedan has been parked across the street almost every night. This afternoon I saw your ex-husband approach him and hand him cash. Then I heard something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, ma'am. That is why I cannot let you in. Follow my story to the end and comment the city where you are watching from so I know how far my story has travelled." Mr. Henderson's words kept echoing in my head as I drove toward the nearest hotel. My hands were still trembling on the steering wheel. After 32 years of marriage, after everything I had endured, now this. But let me tell you from the beginning so you understand how I got here. My name is Susan Miller. I am 63 years old, and for more than 3 decades I was the perfect wife. I met Robert when I was barely 23. He was an ambitious accountant of 28, with big dreams and a smile that melted me. We got married 6 months after meeting in a simple wedding at our local parish. My mum told me that day, "Honey, marriage requires sacrifice. The woman is the one who holds the home together." Sometimes we sell ourselves these little lies about duty just to survive the loneliness. And boy, did I take those words seriously. The first few years were good. Robert worked long hours, and I took care of the house. When our daughter Danielle was born, I left my job as a secretary at a school. "It makes no sense for you to work," Robert told me. "With what you earn, we would barely pay someone to watch the girl. It is better for you to stay home." And I accepted, because that was what was expected of a good wife. 3 years later, our son Jason arrived, and my days became an endless whirlwind of diapers, bottles, and sleepless nights. But I was happy, or so I told myself. I watched Robert progress in his career, opening his own accounting firm, and I felt proud. I was the one ironing his shirts at 5 in the morning so he would look impeccable for his meetings. I was the one preparing dinners for his important clients, the one who smiled and served coffee while they talked business. I was the one who stayed awake when the kids had fevers so he could sleep and perform well at work the next day. The years passed and my children grew up. Danielle turned into a difficult teenager, always demanding designer clothes and the latest cell phone model. Jason was quieter but equally demanding. And Robert arrived home, later and later. "I have a lot of clients, Susan," he would tell me. "This is for our future, to give the best to the kids." And I believed him. I always believed him. When Danielle turned 16, Robert insisted on throwing her a party over the top. We rented an elegant hall, hired a live band, and even brought in a DJ who was trendy at the time. We went into debt for more than 2 years to pay for it, but Robert said it was important, that our daughter deserved it. I prepared almost all the food with my own hands to save money. I spent 3 full days in the kitchen making lasagna, sliders, and trays of appetizers for 200 people. My hands ended up swollen and burned, but the party was a success. Danielle did not even thank me. She was too busy taking pictures with her friends. My life became about serving everyone. Robert wanted his meals on time, his clothes clean, his house spotless. The kids wanted everything served on a silver platter. Nobody asked how I was. Nobody noticed when I got sick or when I was tired. I remember one time I fainted in the kitchen from high blood pressure. I woke up on the floor, alone. Everyone had left without realizing. Robert to his office, the kids to school. I got up, drank a glass of water, and continued preparing the day's meal. It is funny how you can be the heart of a home and still stop beating without anyone noticing. When the kids entered college, I thought things would improve, that maybe Robert and I could reconnect, travel, enjoy ourselves. But no. Danielle was studying fashion design at a very expensive private university. Jason studied business administration and decided to do a master's degree abroad. Everything was expensive. Everything required money. Robert worked more than ever. I stayed alone in a house that was increasingly empty, waiting for someone to need me. My friends told me I looked tired, that I had aged a lot in a short time. I looked in the mirror and no longer recognized the cheerful girl I once was. My hands were rough from so much washing and cleaning. My back hurt from carrying the grocery bags alone, from mopping floors, from making beds that no one appreciated. I had gained weight from the stress, and because I ate at odd hours, usually whatever was left in the pots after serving everyone. But I kept going, because that is what a good wife does, a good mother. You sacrifice yourself without expecting anything in return. Robert started arriving later and later. First it was 9 at night, then 10, then midnight, always with the same excuse. Work, clients, paperwork to review. His cell phone rang at all hours and he would go out to the garden to answer. "It is confidential, Susan. Client matters," he told me. I nodded, swallowing the suspicions that were starting to grow in my chest like a weed. One night I found an earring in his car, a small gold earring shaped like a butterfly. When I asked him, he got angry. "Now it turns out you are spying on me. It must belong to some client. I give them rides or take them to review documents." "Do not be ridiculous, Susan." He made me feel stupid, jealous, paranoid. I apologized to him. That is how well he had trained me to doubt myself. That night at the hotel, lying in a bed that was not mine, with the cell phone in my hand, I called Mr. Henderson. "I need to know exactly what you heard," I told him. There was a long silence on the other end. "Mrs. Miller, I heard when your ex-husband told the guy who was following you that he needed to know your exact routines, that he needed to know when you were alone, when you went out, who you saw. And then he said something that scared me a lot. I need to ensure that everything is in order for when the moment comes." I do not know what that means, Ma'am, but I did not like how it sounded. Fear ran through my entire body. What moment? What was Robert planning? He had already taken everything from me in the divorce. Well, almost everything. The house where I lived now was mine. It had belonged to my mum, and she inherited it to me alone. It was the only thing Robert had not been able to touch. Did he want to take that away from me too, or was it something worse? I could not sleep that night. I turned everything over and over in my head. I had to understand how I had reached this point, watched like a criminal by the man with whom I shared more than 3 decades of my life. The beginning of the end started 2 years ago. Robert arrived one Friday evening earlier than usual. He found me in the living room watching my favorite soap opera, something I could only do when I was alone because he thought it was a waste of time. He sat across from me with a serious expression. "Susan, we need to talk," he said. My heart accelerated. Nothing good begins with those words. I have been thinking a lot about us. He continued without looking me in the eye. The kids are grown. They do not need us anymore. You and I no longer have anything in common. I think we should go our separate ways. Just like that. 32 years summarized in 3 cold sentences. I remained paralyzed. Is there someone else? I managed to ask with a thread of a voice. He got offended. He stood up. See? Always with your insecurities, with your jealousy. Not everything is about that, Susan. I simply do not love you anymore. I feel nothing. You stopped attracting me years ago. His words were like knives burying themselves in my chest. He was blaming me. Me, who had dedicated my entire life to making him happy. Me, who had forgotten who I was to do what he needed. There is a specific kind of silence that follows a life shattering apart. I went to the bedroom crying, feeling like the sky was falling on me. He stayed in the living room, calm, as if he had just commented on the weather. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes, but determined to fight for my marriage. I prepared his favorite breakfast. I fixed myself up the best I could, and when he came down, I begged him to reconsider. We can go to therapy, Robert. We can try. Do not throw all these years in the trash. He sighed as if I were an annoying child. It is already decided, Susan. I already spoke with a lawyer. I am going to be fair with you. Do not worry. But this is over. The following weeks were hell. Robert moved into the guest bedroom. He barely spoke to me. When I tried to talk to my children to tell them what was happening, they took their father's side. Mum, Dad has a right to be happy, Danielle told me over the phone. You cannot force him to stay with you if he does not love you anymore. You have to let him go. Jason was more direct. Mum, do not be dramatic. It is normal for people to divorce. You are a grown woman. Get over it. Nobody asked me how I felt. Nobody comforted me. A month later, Robert arrived with the divorce papers. His lawyer had been very generous, according to him. He would give me a monthly alimony of $800. $800 after 32 years of marriage, of having sacrificed my career, my youth, my identity. The house where we lived, which we had paid for together over 20 years, would be for him. The savings would be divided, but it turned out there were not many savings. Robert had used almost everything for the kids' expenses, or so he claimed. I would be left with practically nothing. The only thing I had was my mum's house, where I was living now. I signed the papers crying. I did not have the strength to fight. I did not have money for a better lawyer. I felt old, tired, defeated. Robert looked relieved, almost happy. You will see that it is best for both of us, Susan, he said while putting away the papers. Now we can both start over. Start over. I was 61 years old, without a job, without savings, without anything other than an old house and bitter memories. 2 weeks after the divorce, I saw the photos on Facebook. Robert, with a young, pretty woman, about 40 years old, hugging, smiling, in an elegant restaurant. My friend Linda was the one who sent them to me. I am so sorry, Susan. I thought you should know. The photos were dated 3 months back. 3 months. Robert was already with her since before the divorce. All his lies, his whole speech that there was no one else. It was all false. I investigated a little, with the help of Linda, who knows how to navigate social media better than I do. The woman was named Vanessa. She was a sales manager at a company where Robert did the accounting. She had never been married, had no children, and from her photos you could see she led a life very different from mine. Gym, trips, expensive restaurants, designer clothes. Everything I never had because I always put my family first. I sank into a deep depression. There were days I did not want to get out of bed. I saw no point in anything. My children barely called me, always busy with their own lives. When I told them about Vanessa, Danielle said, "Oh, Mum, get over it already. Dad is happy. Do you not want him to be happy?" I felt like I was drowning. Who asked if I was happy? Who worried about me? It was my friends who saved me. Linda, Rose, and Patty, my friends since high school. They came to visit me, took me out for walks, forced me to eat. "Susan," Rose told me one day, "you have to react. I know it hurts, but you cannot stay like this. You have to go out, do things, live your life." She was right, but it was easier said than done. Little by little, I started going out more. I went to the market, to church, to have coffee with my friends. I started fixing myself up a little more, worrying about myself. I cut my hair. I bought new clothes with the alimony Robert gave me. It was not much, but it was mine. For the first time in decades, I was making decisions just for me. I also started arriving home later. Before, I was always locked in from dark, out of habit, because that is how I had always lived. But now I stayed chatting with my friends until 9 or 10 at night. Sometimes we went to the movies or to eat something simple. Mr. Henderson, the superintendent, always greeted me with a smile. I gave him an extra tip because he was kind, because he asked me how I was, because he was one of the few men who treated me with respect. It was Mr. Henderson who started noticing strange things. "Mrs. Miller," he told me one afternoon, "do you know someone who drives a grey sedan? I have seen it parked across the street several times." I told him no, that it was probably a visitor for a neighbour. I did not give it importance. But Mr. Henderson is observant. He kept seeing that car and started noting the license plates, the times. That was what saved me. The night Mr. Henderson closed the gate on me, he had already been documenting everything for days. Photos of the car, photos of the man following me, and most importantly, the video where you clearly see Robert in handing money to that man. Mr. Henderson is from the old school, the kind who look out for their neighbours, and he knew something bad was cooking. At the hotel that night, I made a decision. I was not going to sit with my arms crossed. I needed to know what Robert was plotting. The next morning, I called a lawyer that Linda recommended. Attorney Harrison was an older man, about 70, with a lot of experience. When I told him my situation and showed him the photos and videos Mr. Henderson had sent me, his expression turned serious. "Mrs. Miller, this is stalking. It is illegal for your ex-husband to have you followed. We can file a report," he told me, "but first we need to understand what he is looking for. Do you have anything of value that he might want? Properties? Money? Anything?" I told him about my mum's house, the only property in my name. The attorney nodded thoughtfully. "It is possible he wants to find a way to take it from you. Or worse, he could be looking for evidence to accuse you of something and keep that house. Do you have all your documents in order?" That question made me think. I went home the next day, early, when I knew there would be no one watching. I reviewed all my papers. The deed to the house was in my name. That was certain. But I found something else. Among my mum's old documents, there was an envelope I had never opened. It said, "For Susan, open only in case of emergency." My mum had passed away 5 years ago, and I had never seen that envelope because it was in a box with many papers I had not had time to check. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, there were documents for a bank account in the Cayman Islands. My mum, who I thought barely had enough to survive, had been saving for years. She worked as a seamstress her whole life, making wedding dresses and gowns for the rich families in the area. Apparently, she charged much more than I thought, and she had kept that money in secret. The account had more than $200,000. I almost fainted when I saw the figure. There was a letter, too, written in my mum's shaky handwriting. My dear daughter, if you are reading this, it is because I am no longer with you. This money is for you, only for you. Do not tell Robert or anyone. It is your insurance, your freedom. I always knew that man did not value you as you deserve. Use this money to be happy, to live the life you never allowed yourself to live. I love you, Mum. My mother was saving me from the grave. I started crying right there, on the floor of my bedroom, hugging that letter. My mum, even from beyond, was taking care of me, giving me what I needed to defend myself. And in that moment, I knew I had to be smart. Robert could not know about this money. Nobody could know yet. I called Attorney Harrison and told him about the discovery under strict confidentiality. He helped me verify that the account was still active and that I could access it. Everything was in order. My mum had left everything perfectly arranged. Mrs. Miller, the attorney told me, with these resources you can defend yourself very well, but I suggest we move carefully. We are going to investigate what your ex-husband is plotting before he knows you discovered this. I hired a private investigator. With my mum's money, I could pay him without problems. The investigator, a young but professional man named David, began following Robert and the person who was watching me. In 2 weeks, he had a full report that left me frozen. Robert and Vanessa wanted to get married, but Vanessa came from a conservative and wealthy family, and she did not want to marry a divorced man who left his wife almost on the street. That damaged her reputation. So Robert had invented a strategy. He wanted to prove that I was a woman of questionable morals, that I went out late at night, that maybe I had lovers. With that evidence, he could sue me for retroactive adultery, argue that the divorce was my fault, and look good in front of Vanessa's family. Furthermore, he was looking for a way to take my mum's house, arguing that I could not maintain it with the alimony he gave me, and that it was better to sell it and split the money. It was a twisted and cruel plan, but very typical of Robert. He was always calculating, always thinking several steps ahead. What he did not know was that now I was also playing chess, and I had pieces he did not know about. I decided to teach him a lesson he would never forget. But I had to be patient. I had to plan well. With the help of Attorney Harrison and David the investigator, I started moving my pieces silently. First, I transferred the money from the Cayman account to a new account in the US, in my name only, at a different bank than the one I had always used. Then I invested part of that money with a financial advisor the attorney recommended. The rest I kept for what was coming. Second, I hired my own surveillance team. If Robert was following me, I would follow him. And boy, did we find interesting things. Robert not only had a relationship with Vanessa, he was also embezzling money from some of his clients to personal accounts. They were not huge amounts, but it was enough to get him in serious trouble. David documented everything with photos, videos, and bank statements he obtained legally through contacts he had. Third, I started acting like the perfect victim. I continued with my normal life, going out with my friends, arriving late, giving Robert exactly what he wanted to see. But now I knew they were watching me. So I made sure everything I did was completely innocent. Photos with my friends at restaurants, at the movies, at church, at the mall. Everything documented. If Robert wanted evidence, I would give him evidence, but evidence that I was a decent woman living her life in peace. Meanwhile, I kept pretending to be the same Susan as always when I talked to my children. Danielle called me occasionally to ask for money. "Mum, I need $200 for a course I want to take," she would say. Before I would have told her I did not have it, that the alimony barely covered me. But now I gave her the money without complaint. I wanted everyone to think I was still the same, weak, without resources, dependent. Jason was harder to handle. He called me one day very angry. "Mum, Dad told me you have been acting very weird, that you go out a lot, that you arrive late. What is going on with you? Are you not ashamed at your age? I bit my tongue not to scream everything I wanted to say. Instead, I played the weak one. Son, I only go out with your aunts and my friends. What is wrong with that? I feel very lonely here. Your dad already has his new life. You guys are busy. Can't I have a little company? He softened a bit. Well, okay, Mum, but be careful. People talk. People talk. Those words hurt me more than Jason imagined. My whole life I worried about what people said, about keeping up appearances, about being the perfect wife, the selfless mother. And in the end, what was it for? My husband left me for a younger one. My children judged me, and I was alone. But not anymore. Now I was going to live for me. The months passed and I continued with my double life. On the outside, I was the Susan of always. On the inside, I was a woman reclaiming her power, her voice, her dignity. I took computer classes to learn how to handle technology better. I joined a book club. I started going to the gym 3 times a week. Not to look better for anyone, but to feel better about myself. For the first time in decades, I was investing in me. One afternoon, I was at a cafe with Linda when I saw Robert and Vanessa walk in. They did not see me at first. They were sitting at a table on the other side, very affectionate, holding hands. Vanessa was wearing a huge ring on her finger. They had gotten engaged. Linda noticed my stare and touched my hand. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Better than okay," I answered with a smile. "This is perfect." Because it was perfect. Robert felt confident, sure that everything was going according to his plan. He did not know the surprise that awaited him. That night, Attorney Harrison called me. "Mrs. Miller, we have everything ready. Are you sure you want to proceed?" I took a deep breath. "Completely sure, Attorney. It is time for Robert to learn he cannot play with people like this." The plan was simple but effective. First, we would file a lawsuit against Robert for stalking and harassment, with all the proof of the illegal surveillance. Second, we would expose the fraud he was committing with his clients. Third, I would demand a review of the divorce, arguing that it had been under duress and with false information, since Robert hid assets and his relationship with Vanessa during the process. But I wanted something more. I wanted Robert to feel what I felt. I wanted him to know what it feels like to be humiliated, to be left with nothing, to be betrayed. Revenge is not about making them pay, it is about making them see you. So we added a fourth element to the plan. We contacted Vanessa's family. David, the investigator, was the one who approached Vanessa's dad, Mr. Arthur Dalton, an important businessman, very traditional. He showed him the evidence of Robert's fraud, of how he had lied about the circumstances of his divorce, of how he was illegally watching me. Mr. Dalton was indignant. "This man has lied to my daughter," he told us in a meeting we had in his office. He made her believe his ex-wife was a bad woman, that he was the victim. And now it turns out he is a criminal. Mr. Dalton was a man of principles. He was not going to allow his daughter to marry someone like that. But he agreed to help us teach Robert a lesson. We organized an event that would go down in history. Vanessa, heartbroken but furious at the lies, agreed to cooperate. She organized an engagement dinner, inviting her whole family, Robert's close friends, and even my children. Danielle and Jason were happy their father was going to get married. Finally, the family would be complete according to them. It never mattered to them that I was left destroyed along the way. The dinner would be at an elegant restaurant downtown. Robert was extremely excited. Finally, he was going to formalize his relationship in front of everyone. What he did not know was that tonight, his world was going to crumble. I arrived at the restaurant half an hour before everyone. I fixed myself up like never before. I spent money from my savings on an elegant navy blue dress. I got my hair and makeup done at a salon. I lost almost 20 pounds in those months at the gym, and I felt good about myself. Linda, Rose, and Patty arrived with me for moral support. You look beautiful, Rose told me. You're going to shine tonight. The plan was that I would arrive as a surprise guest of the Dalton family. Vanessa had told Robert that her father wanted to meet the whole family, including the ex-wife, to close circles and start off on the right foot. Robert could not refuse without looking bad, although inside he was furious. Danielle and Jason were not happy that I went either, but they had to accept it. The guests started arriving. Robert entered with Vanessa on his arm, smiling, greeting everyone. When he saw me, his smile froze. I gave him a sweet smile and a little wave. He approached. "Susan, what are you doing here?" he asked through grit teeth. "Vanessa's father is not here," I replied calmly. I thought it was a very kind gesture on his part, wanting to meet the whole family of his future son-in-law. Danielle and Jason also looked at me with surprise and some annoyance. "Mom, did you seriously have to come?" Danielle whispered to me. "This is awkward." "Your grandfather on Vanessa's side invited me personally, honey. It would have been rude to reject the invitation," I replied calmly. The truth is, I was having fun watching everyone's discomfort. We sat at the table. I was strategically placed between Mr. Dalton and Attorney Harrison, who had also been invited as my companion. Robert was on the other side of the table with Vanessa, sweating despite the air conditioning. I could see he was nervous, trying to decipher what was happening. The dinner started normally. Elegant dishes, superficial conversation, toasts to the happy couple. Robert started to relax, thinking maybe everything would turn out fine. Then, when they brought dessert, Mr. Dalton stood up and asked for everyone's attention. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this special dinner," he began. "As you know, my daughter Vanessa and Robert plan to get married soon. I, as a father, wanted to make sure my daughter was making the best decision, so I did what any responsible father would do. I investigated thoroughly the man who wants to marry my little girl." Robert went pale. Vanessa took his hand, but he was paralyzed. Mr. Dalton continued. "And what I discovered deeply disappointed me. Robert, you told my daughter that your divorce was because your ex-wife was a problematic woman, that she went out at all hours, that she practically abandoned you. You told her that you were generous with her in the divorce, that you gave her more than she deserved." All eyes were on Robert. He tried to speak, but Mr. Dalton raised his hand. "Let me finish. It turns out all that was a lie," he pointed at me. "Susan was a dedicated wife for more than 30 years. She sacrificed her career and her life for you and for her children. And you left her practically on the street, with a miserable alimony, after having cheated on her with my daughter for months before the divorce." Vanessa let go of Robert's hand and looked at him with eyes full of tears. "Is that true?" she asked him. Robert stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. Danielle and Jason looked at each other, confused. They had never heard this version of the story, but Mr. Dalton had not finished. "And that is not all. I also discovered that you have been illegally watching Susan. You had her followed, photos taken, her movements documented, all to try and invent evidence that she was an immoral woman and thus look good in front of us." He pulled out a folder and started showing the photos and documents that David had compiled. "Here is the man you hired. Here is the video where you pay him. Here are the photos he took of Susan doing completely innocent things, like going to mass or having coffee with her friends." The room fell into complete silence. Robert tried to defend himself. "Mr. Dalton, this is a misunderstanding. I only wanted—" "You wanted what?" Mr. Dalton interrupted him with a firm voice. "To destroy the reputation of an innocent woman, to harass her." That is a crime, Robert. A serious crime. Then it was my turn. I stood up, legs shaking but voice steady. Robert, for 32 years I served you. I washed your clothes, cooked your meals, raised your children, sacrificed my dreams for yours. And when you didn't need me anymore, you discarded me like trash. You left me with nothing, made me feel worthless. And then, as if that wasn't enough, you planned to destroy the little I had left, my dignity and my house. Tears ran down my face, but I didn't stop. You thought I was stupid, that I was weak, that you could do whatever you wanted with me. But you were wrong. I pulled out my own documents and put them on the table. Here I have evidence that you have been embezzling money from your clients. Thousands of dollars you have stolen over years. I also have here a lawsuit for stalking and harassment. And this, I pulled out another document, is a lawsuit to review our divorce because it was done under duress and with false information. Robert was white as a sheet. He tried to get up, but Attorney Harrison put a hand on his shoulder. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Mr. Miller. We have witnesses and evidence of everything. And believe me, the crimes you have committed can take you to jail. Danielle stood up. Mom, what is happening? What are you talking about? For the first time in years, I saw real concern in her eyes. Not for me, but for her father. Ask your father, honey. Ask him how much money he has stolen. Ask him why he had me watched. Ask him how much of what he has told you about our divorce is true. Jason was also in shock. Dad, is it true what Mum is saying? Robert finally reacted, but with anger. This is ridiculous. Susan is inventing all this because she is jealous. She cannot accept that I am happy with someone else. He turned to Vanessa. My love, don't believe them. This is a trap, a revenge. But Vanessa had moved away from him, tears running down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. You lied to me, she said with a broken voice. You lied to me about everything, about your divorce, about Susan, about who you really are. She took off the engagement ring and put it on the table. I cannot marry someone like that. I cannot marry a liar and a thief. The entire restaurant was silent, everyone watching the drama unfold. Robert looked around seeking support, but only found looks of disapproval and shock. Even his friends looked at him with doubt. This isn't going to stay like this, he said, pointing a finger at me. You are going to pay for this, Susan. I am going to sue you for defamation, for slander, for telling the truth? I interrupted him. Go ahead, Robert. Sue me. I have the best lawyers and all the evidence on my side. And now I also have something you never knew I had. Money. A lot of money. I saw his eyes widen. What? My mother left me an inheritance you never knew existed. Money she saved for years and inherited only to me. Money I have been using to defend myself from you, to hire investigators, lawyers, to rebuild my life. So no, Robert, I am no longer the poor and weak Susan you left behind. I am a woman with resources and the determination to make you pay for what you did. It was beautiful to see the realization appear on his face. For months he had been spending money to watch me, planning how to take my house, and all that time I was several steps ahead of him. You two, I addressed Danielle and Jason. All your lives I put you first. I sacrificed myself for you. And when your father left me, neither of you supported me. You judged me. You made me feel it was my fault, that I wasn't enough. You never asked how I felt. You never defended me. You chose to believe your father without even listening to my side. Danielle started to cry. Mum, we didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked, I interrupted her. You assumed the worst of me and the best of him, and that hurts more than the divorce itself. But I want you to know something. Despite everything, I love you. I will always love you because you are my children. But I am no longer going to allow you to treat me how you have treated me. I am no longer going to be the doormat everyone steps on. From now on, you respect me, or I am not part of your lives. Mr. Dalton put his hand on my shoulder in a sign of support. Robert, I want you to get out of this restaurant now. You are not welcome in my family, nor near my daughter ever again. And I suggest you get a very good lawyer, because from what I have seen, you are going to need it. Robert looked at Vanessa one last time, pleading, but she turned her face away. He looked at his children, but both were too in shock to react. Finally, he looked at me, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. Without saying anything else, he left the restaurant walking fast, almost running. The silence that remained was broken by Vanessa, who approached me crying. Mrs. Miller, I didn't know any of this. He told me. He told me you had abandoned him, that it was you who had found someone else. I am so sorry. I never would have. If I had known. I hugged her. She was also a victim of Robert in her own way. It's okay, honey. You didn't know who he really was either. Now you know. Learn from this and find someone who truly values you. My friends surrounded me, proud and excited. Linda whispered in my ear, "That was incredible, Susan. I am so proud of you." And I was also proud of myself. For the first time in my life, I had defended myself. I had fought for me. I had used my voice. I had reclaimed my dignity. Danielle approached me timidly. "Mum, I need to talk to you. I need you to tell me everything, the truth." "When you are ready to truly listen, honey, I will be there," I replied. Jason stayed away, processing everything. I understood. His image of his father had just shattered into pieces. The following days were a whirlwind. The lawsuits were formally filed. Robert tried to defend himself, but the evidence was overwhelming. His clients, upon finding out about the fraud, also sued him. He lost his CPA license. His reputation was destroyed. The Dalton family, who had a lot of influence in the city, ensured everyone knew what kind of man he was. Meanwhile, the divorce review proceeded. With all the evidence of deceit and hiding of assets, the judge ruled in my favor. Robert had to pay me a much larger compensation, plus hand over half the value of the house we had shared. He was also obligated to pay me a decent alimony, 5 times more than what he gave me before. But the best of all was regaining the respect of my children. Danielle came to visit me a week after the dinner. She sat in my living room, the same one where so many times we had watched movies together when she was a girl, and she cried. "Mum, forgive me. I was so blind, so selfish. Dad was always my hero, and I never saw everything you did for us. We took you for granted. We treated you as if you didn't matter, and I'm so sorry." I hugged her while she cried. Forgiveness is a heavy door to open, but you have to walk through it to be free. I forgive you, my love, but I need you to understand that things are going to change. I am no longer the mum who says yes to everything, who sacrifices for you without limits. Now I have my own life, my own plans, and I need you to respect me as a person, not just as your mother. Jason was harder. He idolized Robert. He wanted to be like him. Discovering his father was a fraud affected him deeply. Weeks passed before he came to see me. When he finally did, he was different, more humble. "Mum, I don't know what to say. I was thinking about all the times I judged you, that I took Dad's side without asking how you were. I was a bad son." "You weren't a bad son," I said, taking his hand. "You were just a son who didn't see the whole picture. Now you see it. What matters is what you do with that information." Little by little, our relationship started to heal. It wasn't easy or quick, but for the first time I felt my children really saw me, not just as the woman who took care of them, but as a person with feelings, needs, and rights. As for Robert, things did not go well for him at all. Between the civil and criminal lawsuits, he was financially ruined. He had to sell the house he had fought so hard for in the divorce to pay his legal debts. Some of his defrauded clients managed to get him facing criminal charges. He didn't go to jail, but he was left with a criminal record and on probation. His career was finished. I saw him once, months after everything, at the grocery store. He looked haggard, aged, defeated. He was pushing a cart with the basics: beans, rice, bread, none of the fine cuts and expensive wines he used to buy. When he saw me, he lowered his gaze and went down another aisle. I didn't feel satisfaction seeing him like that. I didn't feel anything, actually. He no longer had power over me, nor over my emotions. With my mum's money and the compensation from the revised divorce, my life changed completely. I fixed up my mum's house, making it exactly as I had always dreamed. Bright colours, plants everywhere, a beautiful garden. I hired a lady to come help me with the cleaning twice a week, not because I couldn't do it, but because I decided my time was valuable for other things. I enrolled in painting classes, something I always wanted to do but never had time for. Turns out I wasn't a bad painter. My paintings started decorating my house and then my friends. I even sold a few at a local exhibition. I also started traveling. First, short trips. To the beach with my friends, to Napa Valley to visit my cousin. Then, longer trips. I went to Italy to see the Amalfi Coast, something that was always on my list, but Robert always said was too expensive or too tiring. I cried with emotion when I was there, looking at those incredible cliffs, feeling like I was finally living. I met new people, made new friendships. In my painting class, I met other women my age with similar stories. We formed an informal support group, meeting every week to have coffee and share our experiences. We jokingly called ourselves the Phoenixes because we had all risen from our ashes. I also started volunteering at a shelter for women victims of domestic violence. I wanted to help other women who were going through what I went through, show them that yes, there is a way out, that yes, there is life after abuse and betrayal. I shared my story with them and saw in their eyes the same spark of hope I felt when I decided to defend myself. One day, almost a year after the famous dinner, I was painting in my garden when the doorbell rang. It was Vanessa. She looked different, more mature, more serious. "Mrs. Miller," she said, "I hope I am not bothering you. I just wanted to come and thank you." I invited her in and served her an iced tea I had just made. We sat in the garden. "Thank you for what, honey?" I asked. "For saving me from making the worst mistake of my life," she replied. "If it hadn't been for you and my dad, I would have married Robert. I would have wasted years of my life with a man who wasn't worth it. You didn't have to do what you did. You could have just defended yourself, and that's it. But you took the time to open my eyes too." I smiled at her. "You weren't to blame for anything either, Vanessa. Robert is very good at manipulating, deceiving. I also believed him for 32 years. I am glad you got out of that before it was too late." We stayed talking for a while. She told me she had met someone new, a good man who treated her with respect. "This time I am going slower," she told me. "This time I am going to really know him before committing." When she left, I stayed thinking about how strange life is. A year ago, this woman was my enemy, in my mind, the one who had stolen my husband. Now I understood she didn't steal anything. Robert had already left emotionally long before meeting her, and she was just another victim of his lies. My children and I also found a new balance. Danielle came to visit often, sometimes just to chat, sometimes to ask for advice, no longer about money, but about life, about her relationships, about her dreams. She told me she had broken up with her boyfriend because she realized he treated her like Robert treated me. I don't want to repeat your story, Mum, she told me. I want a man who truly values me. Jason brought his girlfriend to meet me, a sweet girl named Andrea. During dinner, I noticed how Jason asked her opinion on everything, how he listened to her, how he treated her like an equal. Afterward, when Andrea went to the bathroom, Jason told me, I'm trying to be different from Dad, Mum. I want to be the type of man you deserved to have. On my 64th birthday, my children organized a surprise party for me. They invited all my friends, my family, even some of the women from the shelter where I volunteer. There were balloons, cake, music. Danielle gave a speech that made me cry. My mum taught us by her example what it means to be strong. Not the strength of shouting or fighting, but the strength of getting up when you have been knocked down, of defending yourself when you have been hurt, of forgiving but not forgetting. Mum, thank you for showing us it is never too late to reclaim your life. Jason added, and thank you for forgiving us for having been so blind. I promise you that for the rest of my life, I am going to honor your sacrifice by being the best man I can be. I wept with happiness, surrounded by the people who really loved me, celebrating not just another year of life, but a completely new life. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see a different woman than the one I was 2 years ago. I have more wrinkles, yes, and more grey hair. But I also have a light in my eyes that I had lost a long time ago. I have peace, I have purpose, I have dignity. I see myself and I like myself. I no longer see myself through Robert's eyes, wondering if I am enough. I know I am enough. I know I always was. I converted the room that was Jason's into my art studio. The walls are full of my paintings, some good, others not so much, but all mine. Each brushstroke is an act of freedom, a declaration that my time, my creativity, my passion belong to me. The other day I was at the market buying vegetables when I ran into a former neighbour, Mrs. Betty. "Oh, Susan," she told me, "I have heard so many things about you and Robert. How are you? Are you okay?" In the past, I would have been embarrassed. I would have lowered my head, mumbled something, and left quickly. But now I looked her in the eye and said, I am better than ever, Mrs. Betty. Thank you for asking. And it was true. I keep going out with my friends, arriving home late when I want to, living my life on my own terms, Mr. Henderson, the superintendent who saved me by warning me about Robert's surveillance, became a great friend. He and his wife come to dinner at my house once a month. Mrs. Miller, he told me once, seeing how your life changed gives me hope. If you could do it after everything that happened, anyone can do it. Sometimes I think about everything I lost, 32 years of my life dedicated to a man who did not value me. But then I think about everything I gained, my freedom, my dignity, the respect of my children, new friendships, new experiences, a new version of myself that is stronger, wiser, more complete. Do I regret marrying Robert? Sometimes. But then I see Danielle and Jason, and I know that without that marriage, they would not exist. And despite everything, they are the best thing that happened to me in life. Now I just hope to teach them by my example what it means to live authentically, to defend yourself when necessary, and never, never allow anyone to make you feel less than what you are worth. Recently, I started writing a book, nothing fancy, just my story. Attorney Harrison suggested I write it. He says it can help other women. I do not know if anyone is going to read it ever, but I am writing it anyway, for me. Because my story deserves to be told. Because every woman who has been underestimated, discarded, betrayed, deserves to know she can get ahead. This morning I woke up with the sun entering through my window, without an alarm, without rushing. I made coffee and sat in my garden to listen to the birds. I thought of the Susan of 2 years ago, crying on the floor of her bedroom, feeling that her life had ended, and I wanted to tell her, "Hold on. I know it hurts. I know you feel you cannot go on. But yes, you can. And on the other side of this pain, there is a beautiful life waiting for you. A life where you are the protagonist, not a secondary character in someone else's story." I am 64 years old. According to society, I should be preparing to be a grandmother, to stay home knitting or watching TV, and maybe I do that sometimes. But I am also going to keep traveling, painting, learning new things, helping other women, living each day as if it were a gift. Because it is. Robert took many years of my life, but he is not going to take even one day more. The rest of my days are mine, and I plan to live them fully, without fear, without shame, without asking permission to be who I am. To all the women who are listening to me, those who are in marriages where they are not valued, those who feel invisible in their own homes, those who think it is already too late to change. It is not late. It is never late. If I could do it at 62, you can do it too. It does not matter your age, your circumstances, how long you have been trapped. There is always a way out. There is always hope. And to those who already got out, to those who are rebuilding their lives like me, I am proud of you, of each one, because I know how difficult it is to take that first step, to raise your voice, to defend your dignity. But look at us now. Here we are, stronger, wiser, more complete. My mum watched over me from heaven with that inheritance she left me. She gave me the tools to defend myself, to build a new life. And now it is my turn to take care of others, to pass the torch, to tell them that yes, it is possible, that yes, it is worth it, that on the other side of fear and pain, there is a life waiting, a life where you are in charge, where you decide, where you shine. This is my story. The story of how the woman everyone stepped on became the woman no one can ever knock down again. The story of how I reclaimed my life, my voice, my power. And although this narrative may be a work of fiction, the truth it carries, that every woman deserves respect, is as real as the breath in your lungs. What would you do in my place? Would you stay quiet or fight for what belongs to you? Comment below. I want to know your opinion. I want to hear your story, because we all have a story, and we all deserve to be heard. We all deserve our second chance. We all deserve to fly.